Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L. Now this is the first video back after a bit, there's been a small break on the channel. For people who are interested in knowing what happened or just my excuse for no videos on the channel recently, stay tuned till the end of the video. But before that, we gotta talk first about the differences in the My Hero Academia episode, because there are some people who are not subscribed to the channel who are just here to know what actually is different between episode 3 of season 3 and the Hero Academia manga. Anyway, let's just jump right into it. Episode 3 of the third season of Hero Academia adapts two chapters from the manga, chapter 72 and chapter 73, named Day 2 and Good Evening respectively. Of an interesting note, the episode's name is Kota. That was the name of the previous chapter, chapter 71. Just a little funny little switcheroo that was going on there. The majority of the differences for this episode compared to the manga, they're mostly differences that have to do with streamlining just the sequences of events. Majority, you have a panel here and then now you have a wider screen, you can fit more people into the panel. It's mostly those kind of differences, just differences that ultimately make for a better viewing experience. Mind you, there are a few special notes here and there, and I think there is one extremely critical change, because that just gives anime only viewers a extra detail that manga readers didn't get to have. If I miss any details, they're probably going to be the smaller ones. Let me know down below. So like I said before, the majority of the differences are just things that make the episode flow better, and we can really see it at the beginning. When we look at this scene, the kids from class 1B talking with their teacher Vlad, you don't have to work with the confines of a panel, so you can show a little bit more. And as we go through the sequence of events, we see that the episode itself is more dynamic as opposed to the more limited perspective we got from the initial manga page. Really, there's no real big difference here outside of just when things are happening. The one cool little detail that's been shoved into all of this though is Manga. As we see Manga, he's in quite a few of the scenes, and the animator is just pretty much having fun with him. He is a funny character since all his thoughts are shown in that little bubble and that is his head. So having him there is a nice extra visual flair, I think. Now moving into something, but this wasn't so much that this was different, it was expanded upon, and that is the whole scene of the kids training. We got one-on-one, more or less individual showcases of what the kids were doing. In the manga, we initially got this page, with not much really following it. It was just pretty much we got to see what the kids were doing, but there weren't any concrete explanations. Now there's a bit of a two-layered story here, because first we have this page. This is the first initial page that we got. At this point, readers were just kind of left to try and see what exactly the kids were doing. The anime definitely did a lot better here. Kota practicing his voice in particular was one of the bigger highlights. And again, the explanations really helped out. Now, the second layer to the story is that we actually got explanations to what the kids were doing later on in one of the volume pages. So when the chapters were released in the volume, we had this extra information page that pretty much just told us what the kids were doing. It was pretty much what was recited here. Note, there are some people that are missing from this page, but the details are more or less maintained. The only real difference across this page and the actual anime episode is that the author put in his opinions. And there are two characters in particular that I think are exceedingly funny when it comes to what they were doing, and those are Choji and Toru. Guys, let's take a second to appreciate that Toru is just pretty much, she's not really training her quirk. She's just sneaking around. She is doing nothing to make that thing stronger, right? You can't make your sound invisible. Meanwhile, Shoji is just producing more arms. And actually, it's funny because we look at the guy's opinion about Shoji, and it's pretty much his training is the only one that doesn't seem all that arduous. I just think this is funny overall. Now there is a change that happened because of the expansion that occurred in this initial scene of the walkthrough through the kids' powers. Later on, when we had Aizawa dealing with the kids that dropped out, he had given us a quick run through of what those kids in particular were training. Since that part was already explained with the expansion of the kids' training session, they just kind of cut away from that and just made that scene overall simpler. So that was pretty good on their part. No need to repeat any information. That was just a pretty neat little detail. So at this point, there's only one really big difference beyond this point. Every other difference now is cosmetic. So guys, it's going to be a bit more nitpicky, but let's just get right into it. And let's just start with the appreciation of this panel here. This is the panel, this is the episode. It is always cool to see how close they get some of the scenes. But as we go through, the episode showcase a very quick little flashback to Izuku thinking about All Might and everything that All Might means to him and what All Might choosing him meant. In the manga, it was initially a very quick one panel thing. Moving on, we ended up with this scene of Ragdoll. In the initial manga, it was just this little image right here, like it was a far away shot of Ragdoll having the same lines. What the anime did was they ultimately brought more focus to Ragdoll and just showed her having fun with them. This is actually a really cool note because later on we have this other little segment here where Ragdoll's also in the scene as she's watching Aizawa talk to the kids. This is pretty cool because what the anime is doing here, I believe, they're making Ragdoll a lot more interesting, or not interesting, but she's a lot more of a presence here than she was in the manga. Right now, I like anime Ragdoll way more because like her silliness is coming through, I think, a little bit better. When I think about manga Ragdoll, I just thought of her as a crazy manic superhero lady. But right now in the anime, I see her way more as a Joker, and when I see these scenes, particularly these two, I see what the anime studio is doing. They're increasing her presence, and I like what they're doing. It's a good change. Another difference came in with Todoroki. Specifically in this episode, Todoroki had this smile as he was helping out the girls light a fire. In the manga, we initially got this as the image. Now this comes back to a matter of taste. I personally like the manga image more, just because seeing this more pristine look of Todoroki's face, I think hits in the feels a little bit more. Todoroki is lighting a fire and he doesn't hate himself for it, right? He doesn't hate that he's using his fire side. We get to see all of him in this image. The anime, it works well enough, but I think the manga image, I think it looks a little bit better. What do you guys think? Another big difference beyond that point though was just overall better sequencing of Izuku noticing Koda. So this was another one of those streamlined changes. As we go into the sequence with Izuku and Koda, it's more or less the same. I do want to bring special mention though to the sequence where Izuku was talking about how he was practicing quirks. Although, or yes, in his story, his friend was practicing quirks. What I really want to just point out here is that the telekinetic power, that's his mom's quirk, and the fire breathing is his dad's quirk. So it's just a nice little detail to note. It feels really nice when you're, or not, it doesn't feel nice, but rather it's a bit sad when you consider how much Izuku wanted a quirk, and seeing him try to replicate his parents' quirks really made it just kind of drove that point home a little bit more of how bad of a situation he was kind of seeing himself in. Now we move into the villains. The villains overall had sequence changes. A lot of the things that were happening with the villains, for instance, we started off with Toga. In the initial manga, it wasn't that way. We started off with the villains pretty much just out in the open like that. The next chapter, however, is the one that started with Toga's face. Overall, not a big difference, just resequencing the events to make it land a little bit better. As we move through the night though, we do get to see we do get to see shots of the kids sleeping. Now this one I want to just bring to your attention because one of these panels, specifically this one, or one of these, or I guess now one of these scenes, when it initially came out in the manga, this was a panel that's been used a lot when it comes to discussing who could be a traitor in Hero Academia. And now comparing these two images, you can kind of see that when it came to the manga, this is just an issue of things not being very clear. A lot of the things that people would say when they look at this image of who we could probably guess is Toru sleeping there. Some people would use that as evidence that she's not there because it doesn't look like the person is there. Whereas if you can see in the anime picture, they've made the bed distortion a little bit more noticeable. So now it's beyond a doubt Toru is sleeping there. There is another note here. There is someone missing from the boys' side. I believe that is Ida. I believe that there was a very small side story that came out at some point in the past, but I have not confirmed that. Mind you, Hero Academia has released small light novels before, so I don't find that information entirely unbelievable. Anyway, that was just a very quick note. Anyway, we're winding now towards the episode. The biggest changes here at this point that weren't that critical were just Tokoyami and his whole thing about revelry in the night. They just changed the sequencing of that to make it a little bit funnier, and it also just highlighted how much further away Tokoyami was from everyone. The manga panel itself took away background, so it's kind of hard to tell placement, but with the anime, since the placement of the characters is important for the coherency of the scene, it made sense that they had to play around with it. I think this is a pretty cool little thing to do. As we move on into like the kids going on for their night in the forest. We have an extra little scene with Mina and the boys, and also look at just this incredible accuracy to the panel. And we also had Izuku, the roster count, him repeating it a little bit more than he did in the manga. Again, when you look at the changes for this part, a lot of them were comedic, just to improve the comedic timing of things, and also just to pad out the episode. Not a bad thing. I think it was overall enjoyable. Now, that's pretty much the majority of our differences. Then we have the villains attacking. Now here is where the critical one is. This is the detail that changes some of the viewing experience for you, but not really that much. Right here where Pixie Bob gets picked up. This didn't happen in the manga. When we were darting around the different scenes, we just kind of came back and we already had Pixie Bob on the ground. Here, however, you get to see that someone's quirk is being used. So for the manga readers, we had no idea what the quirk was going to be for a bit while longer past this chapter. So it's just kind of neat that the anime only viewers already got a bit of a hint towards what the villains are packing. Anyway, those are the biggest differences. Again, when you look at the differences, they're really just cosmetic. They're really just there to make the episode flow better. And really, the biggest ones that I take away from this, or the ones I appreciate the most, are the one I just talked about, the Mandali scene, the expansion of the kids' training, especially because when an episode is filling in information that wasn't in the manga but was in supplementary materials, I think the episode's done a good job, so I enjoyed that. And I also liked just the extra detailing going on with this shot of Toru in her bed. I just like it because I like seeing other people's theories get destroyed as more information comes out. Anyway, guys, those are all of the differences, or those are the differences I could spot. Let me know if you spot any others that you think are also worth mentioning. And yeah, we're at the end of the video. So yeah, guys, it's been a few days since I've uploaded anything on the channel. Pretty much life is tough, and I made the choice to put the videos down on Saturday and just prioritize some other part of my life, and I realized I should have just probably kept working on the videos, but oh well. That was the reason why I was away. I just put YouTube down because I had to work on other things beyond the podcast on Saturday. Anyway, more videos coming out. I have still the comment response from last week that I have to do for Otaku-chan, but I will try and get it done by the end of this week. I'll have to see. Anyway, leave comments down below, and yeah, I'm not sure if I'll make a comment response for this particular video, but once we're back into a normal kind of schedule, you can expect those videos coming back up again. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Till next time, hope you have a great day.